that number on unproductive or fallible land that's out there as opposed to land that could be put into production. But there's one thing that's certain is that as farmers get new opportunities, whether it be in the SAF discussion and there's more corn that's able to be produced, or there's more soybeans that can be produced for our biofuels and our fuel industries, the farmers are going to meet that demand. The biggest problem that we have in agriculture is the profitability issue. The more profitable we become, that becomes a bigger issue for our farmers to have to make the decision to sell to a subdivision or an industrial park or something else that may be locating on that ground that potentially makes it unproductive or fallible in certain areas. The more opportunities that we give our farmers in order to have that profitability, to have that legacy leaving opportunity, the more productive that our ground's going to be. So opportunities like SAF of more biofuels being created in the state are only going to increase the opportunities for those grounds to be able to go into production. Right now, with land prices as high as they are, Senator, what a lot of our farmers are seeing is that ground that normally they wouldn't have tried to clear in order to make it productive, they're now starting to try and clear it because it's a lot cheaper to do $3,500 an acre and clearing that land than it is to go buy new land at $6,000 and $10,000 an acre. And so we're seeing some land that had been fallible or had been grown up in the past that they're starting to put back into production now. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. And to follow up on that, farmers are really good about getting highest and best use out of everything. And sometimes there's some gaps in this, and projects like this, Commissioner Shell and his office can go in and fill in those funding gaps to be able to make some of a better use of property more profitable by filling in the processing or the transportation or some of that.
Absolutely.
I believe Senator Carpenter had a question.
Just one more kind of follow up to that
Sure.
as well. Thinking about some of the requests we're getting from constituents, raw milk, different things that could go much more direct from the farmer to the consumer. Are there some innovations that perhaps your economic development team can identify rather than us always hold on to all of the risk? Is there a way we can be offering, well, here's a home test kit, so before you drink the raw milk, just run it through a quick home test kit?
Yeah.
I mean, just ways that we really can allow innovation around that 5-acre farm or that 7-10 acre farm. I don't know that we need 1,000-acre farms.
I'm not sure that would be a function of our economic development portion of what we do. We do have a consumer and environmental protection part of what we do where we do testing around various different things. But around the raw milk and milk specifically, that's a function of UK and their programs that they have at the University of Kentucky that now keeps and holds that information. It's definitely something that we can explore to help expand those opportunities if you all see fit in the legislature to make that happen. But it's not really a function of what we're talking about in this or in probably our economic development. And I'm not sure if there is even home testing kits for opportunities like that. I know that it's a big movement that's happening right now. I know a lot of people are looking at the food freedom movement that's out there. I know they're looking at how can we get more local, how can we get more utilization out of 5 acres that we have there. One of the things that I would say to the farmers that are looking at utilizing those 5 acres is we have amazing programs currently at the Department of Ag towards small farmers. We have our Kentucky Proud program, our buy local programs. We have our KOAP dollars, our CAPE funding that we get in all local communities to try and help build those. And there's other programs that we work on through Food is Medicine, working with local hospitals. We have our LFPA programs that are federally funded, our farm to school programs, and we're trying to expand all of those opportunities so that we can aggregate together some of our smaller farmers to capitalize on those opportunities in the future.
Thank you. Senator Carpenter.
Well, I knew that Commissioner Shell was going to bring the energy level because Jonathan and I have served together here for a while. We've been friends for many years, and I knew what he was going to do to that agency. So I want to start off by saying, it's really excitement to see a big excitement level brought to that group, and you've got so many young folks that you've brought on board, Commissioner Shell, and really got people involved and engaged, and I think you guys are headed in the right direction. I'm one of these people that have to have about 3 or 4 jobs, Mr. Chairman, to enjoy farming. None of my family ever farmed. My dad, when I told him I was going to buy a tractor and start doing a little farming, he's like, "Why in the world are you wanting to do that?" They none of them farmed. They didn't own farmland. I started doing corn and soybeans. I do steers. I run several loads of steers a year on farms I either have bought or I lease. And so a couple of years ago, I started doing corn and soybeans, and I said, "Dad, you want to come and ride on a combine with me?" Well, everybody, when they see you doing this stuff, they assume that you've inherited this stuff because honestly, unless you're crazy, like some of us, and do a lot of work to be able to afford to do these things. You can't afford to be in the farming business. I mean, it is unbelievable. I don't know how many people's ever tried to do it, but if you want to try to get engaged, I know Senator Howell's dad's has done it for many years, long-time farmer, but it is something that you really have to have a passion and a commitment for, because your costs are always pretty much stable, but the product in which you sell is very fluctuating. You buy it retail and sell it wholesale. For the people that don't understand that, that means you pay full retail price for what you're buying to put in the ground that you hope you can sell, and you sell it at a wholesale price so everybody else down the line gets to make a profit. Somewhere in between, you got to figure out how to make your payments, how to be able to buy equipment, how to be able to improve your land so that you can be productive. And so, luckily, I've been growing houses, and those have been pretty productive, and I've been able to take that money and get in the farming business for the last 10 or 15 years. Now, that could stop at any time because that's not always productive either. I've seen those days when that does not work too well. But my point of all this is like, so I've created a little corn and soybean deal. I've really enjoyed it. It's kind of been a passion of mine. All my other buddies get to go to the lake and go enjoy all their time, and I get to go on a combine or go on a tractor and start planting corn at May at 10 o'clock at night after I quit working. But, here's what I was going to say. The reason we need to do this thing that you're talking about on the economic development side is right now there's not a lot of places for me to sell my corn. I had like 40,000 bushel this year of corn I put in my bins. And my good friend Senator Hornback is who I call on a daily basis, who is no longer here. He's in Florida. I called him a couple of days ago. He's fishing, and I was asking him questions of what I should do on some stuff. And so it's good to have some people of resources, because he spent 30 years of his career trying to figure out how to make this stuff work. And so I told Jonathan, I was like, I don't have a place to sell my corn. I'm trying to figure out who I'm going to wholesale it with. And so I finally, one of my buddies that own a feed store in Richmond has kind of hooked me up with a guy who buys grain. People are seeing people come to my facility and they're loading grain out of my bin, and they're like, "Where are you taking that, Jared? Whose farm are they feeding that semi-load of corn to?" I'm like, "No, they're not taking it around here. They're taking it to Gainesville, Georgia, to a feed mill that ships it directly over to a poultry facility." Yep. And they've hauled truck after truck after truck. That's where I'm selling it all at. And I'm getting a premium for selling it to them because they have a need and they like our product. Kentucky corn is better than the corn products that they sell south of here. It has better yield. It has better protein. It has a lot better vitamin factor. And so if we have something like that close by, then it makes it a lot easier for people to have a resource to be able to sell it. Luckily, I can hang on to this product because I was dumb enough to spend $100,000 on a grain bin to hold this product to be able to sell it. Here's the deal. The reason I'm saying this, because people who don't understand it, they don't understand this money because it's real. Everybody's like, "Oh, I bet you got a government grant to build that grain bin, didn't you?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I got a government grant, all right." I had to write a check for it and try to hope I can figure out a way to pay for it. And so the deal is, the reason I did that is when I harvested this material, it is worth $4 a bushel. Today I sold it at $4.80 a bushel. So I made 80 cents off being able to hold that. You say, "Oh, that's just 80 cents a bushel." Well, multiply that times 25,000 bushel, and all of a sudden you've paid for half of your grain bin. Yeah. Because you have the ability to hang on to it. Because the market fluctuates daily based on, I don't really know why, the ebb and tide of what somebody on Wall Street decides to pay for it. And so that's what we're trying to figure and hedge the bet. And, you think it's kind of crazy, and I'm always saying, "Why in the world do you do this stuff?" But you have to be able to have people that are working. If the agriculture department doesn't do it, trust me, I've got a lot of young guys that come hang out with me, and they're like, "Man, I'd like to get into farming." I was like, "Well, you better get you 3 good jobs and really want to work, and then sink all your profits from your other jobs into trying to make this farm work." Yeah. And then you want to go try to buy a farm like Jonathan was talking about, and that property is not $3,500 an acre anymore that you can try to make that dollar figure work. Yeah. It's $20,000 an acre. Yeah. And it's getting to where you just can't afford to do it. And so when the profits change and you don't have any place to sell the product, that's why we're trying to do this stuff that you all are working on here that's so needed, then it can make it feasible for you to be able to afford to do it. If not, we're going to look up and we're really going to see less and less farming here. And it's not about people not wanting to work, not wanting to do it. If you can't make it profitable, you can't afford to keep this thing going. So I applaud you. It's something I've got a passion about, and I've really enjoyed your work on it. And I know you're traveling all over the state. I follow you. I'm like, I don't know, never know what county he's going to be in from one day to the next. And I think that message, you too, that message is important because these are products that can make Kentucky continue to be a big part of our economic development and make ourselves grow.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a few comments?
Yes, please.
So on what Senator Carpenter was talking about, leading up to me being commissioner for many, many years, I thought that it was better for us to put it on a barge, a rail, or a truck and send it out of the state. Somebody else was going to pay more for it, whether that be in another state or another country. Getting it out of here, somebody else valued what we had more. I soon realized 2 years ago at the commodity conference down in Bowling Green, we had a marketer come in and was talking about the corn states in this country. You know, you think Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, in that area, they're net importers of corn, not net exporters of corn. Why? Because they have to have it. They have the biofuel refineries. They have the feedlots. They have the poultry operations. They have the consumption in that state. And exactly what Jared was talking about, when you think about having to have that product, at times in Iowa, when corn was $7 a bushel, they were paying $9 a bushel for that same corn because they had to have it. That's what we're trying to accomplish here with this fund, with these monies, with the investment that we're making in economic development around agriculture, is creating an opportunity to have businesses locate to Kentucky that have to have these products so that they're paying for it in a premium way, to increase the basis points on our grain operations, to have opportunities for our farmers to be able to feed out their cattle in a more meaningful way, to be able to get them to a processor in a quicker, meaningful fashion, in order to get our poultry farmers to where that they're increasing their operations and consuming more of these products. It's all about this supply system that we have in agriculture and how we fill those pieces in and fill the gaps in to where that we're consuming more than we're pushing out.
Yeah, thank you to Senator Carpenter's point. We could be making the feed in the Richmond area and trucking the feed down to Gainesville, Georgia to feed poultry and harvesting out the jobs and the additional economic impact for our areas as well. Senator Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Commissioner Shell. I had the privilege of serving with you as well. Yes, good friend, and glad to see you here and glad to see you in the position you're in.
Thank you.
Of course, I'm like Senator Carpenter's dad because I have a son that farms, and he farms in the Mississippi Delta. Yeah. And I remember when he had a business, he started out with a pickup truck and a lawnmower and parlayed that into a couple of teams, and then he bought a grasshopper dealership. And then in the midst of that, where he's making money, he started buying land. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, they're not making any more of it, Dad." And I said, "I understand that." And then he turned around, bought another 125 acres and a tractor. And I said, "Listen, hey, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, Dad," he said, "I think I want to farm." I said, "Are you nuts?" And sure enough, over time, he has farmed. He's farmed up to 4,000 acres at a time and literally lost his shirt doing that. Couldn't find help. It's really hard. This last crop that he had all beans. And he owns about 1,800 acres now. But he's also he has 2 different restaurants that he does. And he has rental properties. And those all subsidize his farming operation, just like Senator Carpenter was talking about, because his bean crop lost money this year. Yeah. And he couldn't, if he had to rely on that, he couldn't afford to farm. And so we've had many conversations about it, and I appreciate this bill because there are many ways that this has worked in our community. Mm-hmm. We have Kenny's Farmhouse Cheese that's up in Barron County. I know many people maybe have had his cheese. We used to go to church together. And then also Cheney's Dairy Barn that does ice cream. Many ways to utilize milk and make money on it. We have some other things. We have chicken houses. We have recently a bacon plant that went in our Trans Park. When I toured it, I was hoping to get some bacon, but they didn't have any at that time.
When I toured it, I got bacon.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, that's because of who you
bacon,
are.
I think.
Maybe you can get one for me. I'm just teasing. But we have one of the largest hog production facilities down there in our district, too, as well. So farming is really something. I think that, the trouble my son has with his restaurants is the price of beef and being able to buy because it's a steakhouse. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, with all being the number one supplier of these feeder calves east of the Mississippi River, there are independent cattlemen I know that are raising and doing their own meat. What's the chances of being able to get a beef processing plant here in Kentucky?
Senator, thank you for that question. And, it is something that we desperately want here in the state. It's something that we are every single day working on. How do we put the pieces together to make that happen? I think another step that's in between us getting a processor here in the state is proving that we can feed the cattle to supply that market. We send 90% of the cattle, if not more, from Kentucky on our background operations west to get fed, and then they get sent back east as burgers and steaks. We're currently working with the opportunities that we, can't discuss openly right now on things that we're working towards, but But I can promise you this, that in what we are trying to accomplish, feedlot operations for Kentucky is something that is high on our list of how do we do this in a meaningful way that can impact the market. I'll give you a reason why I think that over the next 10 to 15 years that Kentucky is going to be one of the most major players in the beef cattle production on the processing and feedlot side, where we have not been in the past. When you look at the West and the Midwest, they've always been there because that's where the commodity has been grown for your corn and beans and your feedstock to be able to feed those cattle in an easy fashion. That's where they put the processors because of that. Now we're finding that water is an issue in the West and the Midwest. We're finding that people are a problem in the West and the Midwest. They don't have the populations in order to get the workforce involved. They don't have the water. And a lot of regulations and strict restrictions are being put on. In Colorado this year, they had a ballot initiative that was going to ban slaughterhouses in Colorado, in Denver. And so when you look at the political pressures that are happening out in some of those western states, when you look at the pressures around water, being able to have that availability, and you look at the people, what you're going to see over the next 10 to 15 years is a shift dramatically in our processing and especially in our beef cattle operations, that if we can prove that we can feed cattle here in a meaningful way, hundreds of thousands a head, not 10, not 20, not 1,000 at a time, then I think we've got an opportunity not only to get those feedlots here in Kentucky, but to also get processing associated with it for a meaningful opportunity for the state. We're diligently working on that every single day. If we don't get it, it ain't because we don't try, it's just because it can't happen. And we're working on it every single day. And I promise you that funds like this bill, will directly impact our ability to be able to attract them to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've had a motion saying we do have a couple more questions on this. I'm going to hold the motion for now and go to Senator Boswell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I had the pleasure last night of being with Commissioner Shell in Hancock County, and he truly is an Energizer bunny. And at the end of that meeting last night, he had to leave, but he said, "I'll see you tomorrow morning in Frankfort at the Kentucky Proud Breakfast." I said, "You won't be seeing me at 7 o'clock in the morning." So I had to go home and drive up early this morning, which I did. I'm also involved in farming and flatland farming, mostly corn, soybeans, wheat. I've experimented with canola, buckwheat, other small crops to try to see how they would do. And so I'm excited about what we're doing here with agriculture. And so I'm looking forward, though, to seeing we'll be having you'll be giving an interim report, I think, in November of 25. I'm looking forward to seeing, because I am on A&R, and we do have to, as we all are concerned about how this money will be spent. So we're looking forward to that report. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. We have time for one last question. Senator Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner. And I want to apologize for being late. The leadership group, particularly, I was in the mountains yesterday, and my district gets flooded a little later than everybody else. But so I came in a little late, and I apologize. But I'm tickled to death to see this bill for many reasons. I think it dovetails nicely with what we already have on the tobacco settlement funds and the cooperation that we have. This is the next level of that. And I just don't want to lose another opportunity like we did a couple years ago to a Midwestern state when we're just as well suited. And as a beef producer, I appreciate your efforts in trying processing and feedlots and that kind of thing, because I got friends in Oklahoma, the drought cycles and other things like that. And it's we're well suited to proceed and progress in this. So you have our full support on this initiative, and I wish we would have had it, coulda, woulda, shoulda 5 or 10 years ago. And I also want to thank you for hosting Secretary Rollins, the new USDA Secretary in Louisville. I think that relationship's going to be, I'm a horse girl, but anyway, I think that's going to be very beneficial to our standing nationally on some of these issues. So thank you for that too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, real quick. Senator Webb, I know also that one of the biggest passion points that you have is making sure that Eastern Kentucky is taken care of in all the things that we do. And I am proud of the work that Brandon has been doing at KOAP, and I know he gives you a report every single month on the things that are going on. We try to highlight those opportunities that we're trying to help facilitate. But I do want to make sure that I say this about these funds, is that there is agriculture in Eastern Kentucky, and there's a big agriculture sector there, especially around our cattle industry. And any opportunity that we have in farming around our cattle industry, Eastern Kentucky and Central Kentucky has to be one of the major players that we have involved in that. And it's just a matter of where the opportunity locates and how we're able to do that. And I think through some of the conversations that we're having, Eastern Kentucky has been a place that has surprised me, Jacob. I think that you would be surprised as well how intrigued people are about opportunities that we may be able to have there. And so I just appreciate your focus and your effort that you've put on it for many years of trying to highlight what agriculture is in Eastern Kentucky, because people don't think about it a lot, about what's actually there, but we've got some opportunities I think we can capitalize on.
Well, and I just want to thank you for your presence in East Kentucky and your team's presence in East Kentucky and the encouragement and that we get. My people, we're population-wise the most impacted with the tobacco buyout and whatnot. And sometimes it's hard for them to ask for help or to take advantage of what's available. So the educational outreach and your presence has just been very beneficial, and we thank you for that too. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the bill by Senator Richardson. Is there a second?
Yes. We have
Second
a
by Senator Nunn.
We have a second. We already have a motion.
We already have a motion. All right, Madam Secretary, call the roll.
Senator Boswell. Aye. Senator Carpenter. Aye. Senator Deneen. Aye. Senator Funky Fromeyer. Aye. Senator Nunn. Aye. Senator Reed. Senator Richardson.
Sorry.
You want to explain your vote?
Yes, sir.
Proceed.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. As we all know, agriculture is economic development, as you said many times, Mr. Commissioner, and I like to vote aye. And I'm just glad to hear I'm not the only one in this room who has to have 3 jobs to support a farming habit. But as a reminder, the 1% feeds the 99 in our country, and I hope that this bill will help our farmers become more profitable. And so, again, I vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Senator Richard. Yeah. Senator Webb. Aye. Senator Wilson. Aye. Senator Yates. Aye. And Chairman Howe.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you for all your hard work on this. And remember, a few years from now, when you see an application come across from the Barefoot Farmer down in Berrien County, that you met him here first.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee, and we will try our best to make you proud of the vote that you've made today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No further business. Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved.